What I might ask is for each of the panelists who haven't yet spoken, just to quickly introduce themselves so the audience knows who you are.
I'm Michael Kline. I'm founder and chief operating officer of ReachLocal. ReachLocal is a company that delivers digital marketing solutions, search engine marketing, display advertising, social media marketing to small businesses, so plumbers, doctors, dentists. We do that through a combination of a technology platform that automates and optimizes these campaigns and a direct feet on the street sales force. We have just around 1,000 sales reps around the world focused on knocking on doors and delivering these solutions through our technology platform to small businesses.
Hear me? Hello? Yeah, Giuliano Stiglitz. I'm CEO of Orange Advertising Network Americas. We are the digital media division of Orange, the mobile operator. We sell advertising across a number of platforms, web, mobile, TV, mostly across Europe and US and Latam.
Hello. This one? Hi, I'm Daniel Ruch. I'm Vice President of Europe for Tremor Video. Tremor Video is a technology and media company that connects brands with consumers using the power of online video to drive that conversation. And then we back that into an analytics platform to try and understand what are the independent variables that cause brands to perform in different ways on a brand metric basis in real time, and then we optimize campaigns toward those performance variables.
Sound, please.
Hello. Yep.
I'm Marco Kloots. I'm the founder of ClickDistrict. We're an ad network with custom technology, focusing on getting the right ad to the right person at the right time. We're currently active in Germany, Spain, based in Amsterdam, and expanding across Europe.
Hi, I'm Carsten Frien. I'm co-founder and CEO of Madvertise. Madvertise is a mobile location-based advertising network. We are headquartered in Berlin with offices and operations in the UK, Spain, Italy, Austria, Switzerland. And we just recently raised our Series B financing with a US-based investor, Bloomberg Capital. And we're going to expand across Europe, opening up a number of additional offices in 2012.
And I think we've heard from the other two guys. So this is a panel about customer acquisition, and one of the key words that you've already heard in both the two presentations, as well as in the introductions that some of the panelists has made, is around performance and how these different service organizations deliver performance to their customers. So perhaps the first question to each of the panelists, we can just go through in order so you get a flavor of the array of different ways that customers can be delivered, is for each of you, what does performance mean for your business, and what is the top one or two reasons that a customer will choose you? And maybe we start at the far end and sort of work our way back with Pascal.
No? Oui. Okay. So, well, like I said in my presentation, I think performance is about online. It's about direct marketing and buying those clicks that would convert into sales. And they can actually track with whatever tool you're using, whether it's an analytic tool or attribution or deduplication tool. And I think it's important that the semantic is important because everybody talks about performance. And yet the market leader is Google, and so I think that they define performance in a way. So for me, and in short, post-click.
So we've got a click guy at the far end.
Just like Google.
Google is the gorilla in the room that spoke earlier, has now left the room. Philipp.
Yeah, we are not the click guys. We're not the click guys. We believe in, we actually believe in sales as the currency, so CPA. And performance to us means advertisers need to be able to see the sales and reward only the sales, but publishers also need to be able to pick the advertisers that perform best. So we actually have transparency in both directions. Our publishers can choose the advertisers that pay the most that pay the fastest, that have the highest conversion rates, that have the highest eCPMs, it goes two ways. So we see it as a marketplace where performance rules because both sides get to pick each other.
Carsten.
Fantastic. For us at Madvertise, we see performance on the CPC level, and for us it's about cost efficiently driving customers from the mobile network into the offline world. For example, clients like Vodafone or McDonald's or Starbucks are using our platform and technology for cost-efficient customer acquisition from mobile into the offline world. So we would geofence physical locations. It could be a Starbucks or a McDonald's or a Volkswagen dealership to generate test drives. And then within a certain radius around those physical locations, a mile, 10 miles, 50 miles, whatever the radius is for customer acquisition in the offline world, we are then displaying mobile banner advertising on smartphones and tablets to drive customers into those physical locations very cost efficiently.
Right, so another click guy with a mobile twist. Right.
Okay, well, for us, performance, we'd like to take a little bit of a broader look at performance. Not necessarily only the click. We believe that that's a part of the story, but we want to be part of the whole advertising cycle from the beginning, reaching the target audience until the end, where it's a click or a conversion. I think if you look at online video or mobile, I think they all contribute to performance for advertisers, and we are a big believer in conversion attribution, where you take a look at every aspect and you weigh them, at the right way for the right advertiser. There's not one rule how to attribute conversion. I think that depends on what the industry is, what the advertiser is. But we like to take a broader look and look at everything.
So when your customers make a purchase with you, what are they buying? Like, what are you selling?
We work mostly with premium brands. Some of them don't even sell on the web. They sell in the supermarket. So it can be anything. We are not response-driven in the fact that we only work with conversion-centered advertisers. We take branding as part of our proposition too.
Okay, so branding or what the customers want, which may not be a click or a customer action.
Yeah, it could be anything. Could be anything.
So I think there's a line. I think there's a line that you can draw between, and we were talking about this earlier, between direct response performance and brand performance. And so a click, CPA, CPC, I think is more aligned with direct response. And at Tremor, given that it's video and it's expensive and it's very high touch, and there are sizable investments made, the clients that we cater to are more often focused on branding. And so we've developed services and platforms that allow them to understand how brand performance is affected by various market variables in real time. And so we talk about things like engagement rate, we talk about things like time spent, we talk about brand lift, and we talk about those performance indicators as ways to measure the success of a brand campaign in real time, and then optimize those campaigns to the independent variables that perform best for those given indicators. I don't know if that made sense.
So to summarize, a branding guy, but with some very key measurable metrics attached. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yes, for us it's very similar to Tremor. I mean, we're not DR focused, so our focus is branding, but for us the meaning of performance is more accountability to what we do in our branding campaigns and the uplifts for the brands. Ultimately, almost every, we work with very large reach media owners, and we also operate sites that have huge reach and have perfect platforms for branding campaigns. But all of that obviously delivers performance as well. So for us, the meaning of performance is not so much direct response, attribution of the last click and a CPA sale necessarily, but obviously it's accountability that branding not only delivers the brand values that the brand wants to deliver, but obviously delivers also performance. And so we are using analytics tools that allow brands to understand how the branding campaigns also perform.
But in your network, Giuliano, is it primarily a CPM sale? Is that really what the majority of the revenue is?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but we do also CPC, CPA. However, yeah, it's like CPM can also be accountable for performance.
Great. And Michael?
Yeah, so we target a very different segment, small business. So again, think of a plumber, an electrician, a dentist, a lawyer. For them, a click is meaningless because they don't actually have a shopping cart, right? You can't buy an attorney service, well, just yet online. You actually have to show up in the physical office, and so for them, the currency is calls. So from the very beginning, when we built the product, we basically were to demonstrate how many phone calls does a search campaign generate. And historically, we've been able to generate phone calls in the $15 to $20 range, which is far less than they've been paying offline in Yellow Page and newspaper advertising. And from the very beginning, even though we actually charge, at least for our search product, on a CPC basis, we actually show the call because that is how they determine ROI, and that's how we sell the product.
And Michael didn't have a chance to introduce himself properly, but it's a public company, ReachLocal, that I think in the last quarter did just shy of $100 million in the quarter, so that's a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, I think today we've generated 32 million phone calls.
So a significant scale there. So I guess one of the common themes across the panel, with the exception perhaps of Michael, is these are service providers whose customers are larger companies rather than small businesses. And one of the key questions that I think the industry has struggled with is who really is the customer? Is it the brand owner, the website owner, or is it the agency that is sitting in between? And how is the role of the agency emerging and evolving? So I don't know if anyone would like to sort of take a crack at that. If you talk about your own business and how you've seen working either directly with customers or with agencies, how that world is evolving. Marco?
So obviously we do a lot of our business through agencies working with A brands, but what you see at this point is that there's a lot of innovation in the market, and agencies are starting to compete with us, calling it trading desks. Basically it's an ad network owned by an agency, and for us it's an interesting dynamic because I think an agency's primary role should be to advise an advertiser what to do and should be independent. Owning a trading desk and funneling budgets through one of those trading desks makes them taking positions in the media plan, which I don't know at this point, is not clear what's going to happen in the European market, but we look at that very closely because I think it can be an issue later on.
But are agencies the majority of your business by sales or not today?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah, about 70%.
And is that increasing or decreasing?
It's still increasing. I mean, you can never make a media plan with just one company in it. So we're always in the media plan. But from a strategic perspective, I think the role of the media agency should be looked at very closely. What is their added value to the advertiser? And if they don't add any value, we can go directly to them. Right. But for offline, it's still pretty apparent. But for online, it's really changing at this point.
And do others sort of feel that agencies are starting to become competitors as well as customers? Is that a theme that others feel? Pascal?
So, I mean, depends the vertical of business you're talking about. If you're talking about retail, travel, classified, I mean, those are business that are online, they're selling stuff online, they usually have a big in-house marketing team, and these guys you can talk to directly, and agencies are less engaged with those clients because it's mostly about performance, mostly CPA, CPC driven, et cetera, et cetera. When you go to other verticals, then you see you need to have more of a relationship with agencies because especially those brands that are offline brands and they have an online presence are used to work with agencies, and so they give their budget to the agency that then is going to run everything for them. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a trading desk, DSP hype right now, and that's interesting. I think what I see in the end is ultimately the client wants something. He has his goals, he has his performance goals, so whether they're branding, whether they're direct response, and he wants the best. And so for any player in the middle to say, I'm going to offer the best and I'm going to build every piece of your marketing myself, it's difficult. So possibly an agency who runs any kind of budget and want to have a strong affiliate network they're probably going to turn to Zanox. And then if they want a strong retargeting partner, they're going to turn to Criteo. And this world where the agency controls everything, it's an interesting world, but I'm not sure it will happen.
Yeah, so we also work a lot with agencies, but it's interesting that the agencies are actually different than the normal traditional media agencies. They don't actually know what to do with our business model very much. So it's usually specialized agencies that do performance marketing only in some ways, but we only work with them in a sense where we can also access directly the client. So the agencies help the client manage the program, the performance program, but we always need the line of communication directly to the advertiser or the merchant as well, because at the end we need to be integrated with technology into the merchant's website. So it's not something where you, like in a media buy, can just do it and you never have to interact with the advertiser. In our business, actually the success is critically dependent on being able to talk to the merchant for their benefit and for our benefit. But we do see increasingly performance-oriented agencies providing services to merchants around this whole space, because not every merchant wants to build the capability of running performance programs.
On mobile, we're actually seeing the exact same trends. What took us 10 years in the online world is happening in about 2 to 3 years in mobile. So we're seeing a clear trend toward automated trading and real-time bidding and automated price determination and bidding processes. So that changes the dynamics of the industry, but it's happening a lot faster than in the online world. So we're exposed to the exact same underlying industry trends on mobile than in the online world. So very identical setup for Madvertise.
It's an interesting one. As a supplier of inventory, it's one that we're very focused on. I think the traditional value or definition of an agency and the value they provide to a client is sort of to, number one, make sense of a very complicated world in our space, in a very, very cluttered and noisy space, and find the value within it. And then two, use economies of scale and buying power to control pricing. And what's happened is, with the introduction of RTBs, or we call them demand-side platforms and trading desks, you're beginning to see a bit of risk where agencies could potentially be taking on financial motivations that are misaligned with client goals. And so if agencies have ulterior motives, and so what they basically look at is the supply side and the ad network space specifically, and the margins that are made, and they want a piece of that. And that's fine, and that makes sense. The risk for clients is that, again, the financial motivations in going down that path are not necessarily aligned with client goals. And so it creates an interesting dynamic between the client and the agency and how that relationship is managed. But it absolutely forces us, and this is a company where 95% of our business comes directly from agencies, but the strategy and the conversation that we have is more often than not driven with the client.
I think that, hello? Yeah, I think that to answer your question, I mean, the client is always the brand, and brands are getting smarter. I mean, traditionally, as Pascal said, you have the verticals that have been living and breathing in the internet, such as travel, dating as well. These are companies that have internal expertise and knowledge to plan the campaigns directly. So, but what's happening, that knowledge and that black box is becoming more and more user-friendly, and some platforms that are being developed are, not quite, but almost idiot-proof. So you have a lot of it's getting easier, even for non-traditional internet players, to understand what's going on and to say, okay, you are an agency, or you are a trading desk, or you are a provider which doesn't operate in a transparent way. You do your business and then you send me a report. But what actually are you doing? Because with this platform, I can do everything myself. So what's happening? You have a lot of brands now in the US that are traditionally, these are big brands that engage with an agency relationship, but now they're saying, well, here's got this great platform, and with this one I can do everything that this trading desk or this this new tech companies or this agency was doing for me, and I can understand better, and there's a learning curve. So you're seeing more of that. So I think that everything that all the people are going to be in the middle, so agencies, but also trading desks, or also kind of businesses that are operating in a non-transparent kind of black box environment, they have to ask themselves, what value do they bring? Because the brand is always going to bring the money. Creative agencies are always going to bring like creative aspect, and media owners are always going to bring relevant audience. Everybody in between, what is it that they're adding to performance?
Well, so in the past, in a past life, I worked at Yahoo, and roughly half of Yahoo's revenue came from agencies, the other half directly from the advertiser, and there was always an unsaid truth that you'd much prefer to be working directly with the client rather than mediated relationship through the agency, and everyone was kind of hoping that agencies over time would go away, but they proved to be very resilient. And I just wonder if, with the new technologies that are emerging, if kind of folks really believe that their role will become diluted or will change to be more of a true service organization, or if, as you say, the alignment of interest will become problematic for them.
But the alignment of interest will become problematic, but it's not a problem unless it really becomes a problem. I think clients need to be having that conversation with their agencies, and we've been speaking to clients, and clients are asking us and challenging us how their service they're being provided by their agency makes sense, and what we think about it. So that conversation is already happening, and we've had this conversation for years in print, in radio, in digital, in broadcast. What's the role of the agency? The supply side always argues that agencies are not going away. I think they have a role now. They will always have some role. I think with the advent of these technologies on both the demand side and the supply side, that relationship just gets more sophisticated and more complicated, which actually makes them more relevant because it gives them another reason to exist. Anytime we have complications in our space, agencies can make sense of that world on behalf of their clients and essentially rationalize their existence.
Philipp.
What we're seeing is the world of online marketing getting infinitely more complex every year with new business models, new technologies coming up. So from a client perspective, agencies make a lot of sense to help them navigate that complexity and to deal with that. Because as a client, what do you know about the new technologies if your core business is being an online retailer, or if your core business is actually being an offline business that now tries to do online very well? So I think there is increasingly the need to have somebody navigate this complexity on your behalf. But what the agencies have to learn is they have to become much more technologically sophisticated. It's no longer about just creating this wonderful media buying plan, because that misses out, more than half of the online advertising opportunity if you're only thinking in terms of a reach-based plan for your client. So technology for an agency plays a much bigger role than it used to.
Well, I guess in our case, we are the agency because we have the direct relationship with the customer, and so the question isn't, for us is, do agencies get disintermediated by the publishers? Yahoo would love to have a direct relationship with all the SMBs, as would Google. But I think you have to, again, go back to the psychology of the plumber and the electrician, and they don't have time to spend on self-service platforms. They have time to spend fixing pipes, right, and fixing people's homes. And that's been the same for hundreds of years. If you look at how they've traditionally bought offline media, a salesperson went into their office, if they could find the time to actually get with the merchant, they would, the merchant would cut a check and then go back and do what they did. And that was really what we tried to replicate. We didn't want to change the behavior of tens of thousands of SMBs. That's how they bought media offline. We think that's how they're going to buy media online. And I think that's going to be a unique value proposition. I think, to your point, that's just Google and Yahoo. Where we're getting a huge adoption today is, well, now what do I do about Twitter, Facebook, Groupon, et cetera? And our technology platform is publisher agnostic, and there's always going to be the next thing that an SMB is not like a Fortune 500 brand. They do not understand the rate of change in this industry, and that's kind of the role we play for them.
So is self-serve a myth? And if there really is an important sales role, how much of it is real sales and how much of it is order taking?
No, so for us, and again, it's different based on kind of different companies. For us, our salespeople are called internet marketing consultants for a reason, because every single day we have to demonstrate ROI for a product, which means because we show the transparency of results. And so yes, you need the salesperson to go and take an order, but it's not like the Yellow Page rep that says, I'll see you in 6 months when the next book gets published. The next book gets published, or the equivalent when the next impression gets served, and that impression gets served every second. So we continue to have to show results. And so we really invest in kind of training a specific type of salesperson. It's not someone like even just a Groupon sales rep that's going to go in and take an order for one deal and then kind of move on. We have that sustained relationship with the customer because the economics for our business and to really recoup our Salesforce investment is that we need to kind of broaden into other products, right? So you sell them search, you then sell them remarketing, you then sell them kind of a social media package. So you have to kind of maintain that relationship. And for an SMB, part of the value is education. We've tried to build all sorts of predictive models about when an SMB is going to churn, and it doesn't correlate to logical things like ROI. I mean, clearly they have a perspective on ROI, but it's the service they get. And part of that service is education. They want someone kind of telling them, what is actually going to happen. They want to have the edge on their competition, and that's kind of what a direct sales force enables them to have.
And I guess for others, when you begin the quarter thinking about sales in Q4, how much of it is actually hitting the road selling versus customers just rebuying versus self-serve?
I mean, we like to think that we have a good technology, but technology without sales is nothing. And everybody thinks that Google are just order takers, but they have a pretty good sales team and a pretty big one too. And even if it's Google and everybody knows Google. So I think that it's just life. If you've got a product, you need to sell it, and there's no other way around it. And nobody in the world today has a product that sells itself. It doesn't exist, and even Google. So we focus on winning market shares and winning the market, and we have like client lists, and we hit them. And we've seen, in our experience, opening a country with the wrong people and the wrong sales force and the wrong leader with the same technology, you fail every time. And you fail, and then you hire the right guy, and then suddenly you win. So it's all about selling and people that sell the stuff.
I think, especially since we discussed that most of the products we sell are pretty complex, sales is a big part of explaining to the customer how it should be best used, and which pieces of the portfolio work best for him. So I think part of the sales piece is consulting, and in our industry you can't sell without explaining what you're doing. So I think that part, and I totally agree, without sales you wouldn't be anywhere anyway, but especially in what we're doing with such complex products, I think the consultancy piece is also a very crucial part.
So let's talk a bit about Google, because it's come up a few times. They are the dominant player in the industry. By some measures, the majority of online advertising flows through them in some way, shape, or form. For your businesses, are they a gorilla, something that you worry about, or are they a client educator, and are you happy that they exist?
They're everything. They're a competitor, they're a partner, they're a supplier, even a technology vendor, owning DoubleClick. So it's a very complex. I was just talking about Google, and on one hand we do a lot of business with them, on the other hand they compete with us. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Is anyone really happy that Google exists on the panel?
Yeah, in a way they create a lot of efficiency. They do a lot of performance, but also they do a lot of efficiency, which is interesting in a market that is highly inefficient. If we're coming back to the previous topic, if I'm an advertiser today and I look at the Luma chart, like how do I choose from the gazillions of providers that are all coming with the same value proposition, selling display ads and mobile and whatever, and everything, And so what's interesting with Google and what they do really well and what is very good for the market is bringing efficiency. So if you see the ad exchange that they've built, it's pretty cool. And most of the companies raising money today on the display ad side, mainly raising money because of the ad exchange and because from a single point, you can actually buy inventory everywhere across the world with a simple login password, and boom, you're gone. Okay, so that's very good for the market. I think there is less bullshit probably thanks to that, so which is interesting. And then they're building a big castle, so they build the foundations and they work with everyone, just like they did in search. And God knows what they're going to do one day. So there is a threat in the future that they're going to be so dominant that you won't be able to do anything outside Google. But right now, it's pretty good for the market, I would say.
From a publisher perspective, I think Google is it's a big threat because, of course, they built a stack that goes all the way through the entire value chain, and sometimes it's inevitable for a publisher it's difficult not to use them. And on the other hand, that gives the publisher less control on what they can do with their inventory, and therefore, I definitely can see a lot of value for buyers in the Google stack of different products. There's certainly, from a publisher's perspective, it's a huge threat because they own the technology, they have a piece of the entire value, every single piece of every step of the value chain, but also they sell media like publishers do. So technology provider and a competitor at the same time. So I think when you talk to publishers, I mean, Google is, especially like premium publishers and more traditional ones, it's certainly a big threat.
So I think one of the interesting industry trends that we've seen, given how powerful Google has become, I think it's fair to attribute the success of the click-through rate and the CTR as a metric. I think it's fair to attribute most of that success and its popularity to Google and what Google has achieved in the search space. And that's great from a direct response perspective and from a proxy for real sales and proxy for sales performance in that market. What we've seen in the brand space is for anything less than a completely sophisticated media planning community, which frankly does not exist all over the place. The CTR translates into branding as a proxy for brand performance. And what we have shown, what we're demonstrating, what we're finding using technology is that very often CTR is inversely correlated with branding performance. And so you actually do see a decline in click rates as brand metrics increase. And that's incredibly interesting, but also very dangerous when we're talking to the media buying community that is used to the click rate as the proxy for success across all mediums in the space or across all types of digital advertising, because we as an industry have not done a good enough job of giving them something better. And that's what we're working on doing.
Well, I guess I hesitate to answer just because this is probably one of the top 3 questions we get from analysts. So Google, friend or foe? And I won't repeat, I think it's both. I think to answer your specific question, we want them to go away? Absolutely not. It's by far the best performing product we have for direct response, which SMBs demand. There are some niche directories that we get slightly better cost per call metrics, but we can't fulfill the budgets that we want to sell just by those small directories. So we need Google to do that as well, and I think they just have a great product. But we do not sell a majority of our display budgets through Google. We don't sell a majority of our social media packages through Google. So as long as those trends continue in terms of proliferation of different ways for small businesses to be able to promote themselves, I think that's great. I mean, we did sign a global deal with Google because I think they understood, especially in kind of emerging markets, that it is hard to reach the SMB, and they are not going to build a global feet on the street sales force to go do that. And so we have that symbiotic relationship working, but that's different in that segment, I think.
I'm going to sort of switch tacks here a little bit, just to bubble up a level and talk about some of the changes that are happening in this industry that is going to impact customer acquisition. We've talked a little about the advent of new technologies and trading desks and exchanges. That's one important theme. I did also want to discuss mobile, social, video, some of the new emerging media and how they will impact how brands spend their money to acquire customers. Because the bulk of the industry historically has been banners and then the CPC market that Google pioneered. A lot more of the money is now flowing into these new media forms, and it would be great to get each of your perspectives on which you think the most important development is and why. So who wants to go first?
I take the mobile one. So I guess no surprise that we are convinced that mobile will be the winning channel over the next 3 to 5 years. But if you look at the numbers which back that up, then you see that smartphone penetration is steeply increasing. There's more smartphones being sold than laptops for the first time. And you're seeing a lot of countries where mobile internet usage has overtaken fixed line internet usage. And if I'm looking around here, then certainly everybody has multiple mobile devices at hand. So we're seeing a dramatic increase in usage on the mobile channel. And the spend, the budget side has not yet caught up to the significant increase in usage. So we're expecting a dramatic shift, not only from online budgets to mobile, but also from television and outdoor budgets due to the location targeting capabilities into the mobile channel. So in our world, we are seeing this significant budget shift happening. Not only next year, but only in the next, but also in the following years, 2013, 14, 15, always with a strong ROI perspective to things in order to cost efficiently drive customer acquisition via the mobile channel. And then it's almost less important if it's a mobile banner or a mobile pre-roll or mobile rich video ad or what kind of ad format you're having. It's more about the efficient customer acquisition via the mobile channel, together with all the targeting capabilities you have on mobile, which are not existent in the fixed line internet.
So one data point to support that, I had lunch this week with the Twitter CEO, Dick Costolo, and he mentioned that, and this was news to me, 45% of all their traffic is now mobile centric, and he expects that to be the majority quite soon and the vast majority over time. So certainly for that particular product, mobile is the future and already the present. So, Michael.
Yeah, I'd say two things. I just wanted to pick up on mobile. So we've seen kind of search volume from mobile range from 5% up to 40% in some of our verticals. So that's a clear trend. I think people predicted in some verticals it's going to be, a majority in the next couple of years. I think specifically with regard to mobile, I think one thing that's pretty interesting to watch is the new Siri app on the new iPhone, because it's a new way of searching. I can easily say someone's saying, Siri, can you find me a plumber at 4 p.m. tomorrow? I think that's going to be an interesting app, and I think that dovetails with I think what we see, at least in our space, is kind of big trend number 2, which is local commerce. So Groupon, pioneered the ability to actually buy something offline, online. That's something that really hadn't been done before. You could never buy a spa appointment. You could buy a certificate, but the actual spa online. And they're kind of focused on certain, niche verticals, I'd say kind of more the serendipitous purchases. But if you kind of think about Siri and I want to buy, I want that plumber at 4 p.m. combined with the ability to actually transact, what we call local commerce, I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. And that's going to be a CPA-based or CPA equivalent-based ad product. And that could actually, threaten the CPC-based models that, Google enjoys today. So that's something we're definitely watching.
Philipp.
Yeah, so for us, mobile is also a huge growth driver, and we assume that that's going to continue over the next years. In fact, we've seen our mobile transaction volume increase 5-fold in the last 12 months, so 500% growth within 1 year of mobile transactions. That's relative to double-digit in the non-mobile, so in the stationary space. But we see it slightly perhaps differently because we don't actually see it as a separate channel that requires all sorts of ads to be specifically designed for the mobile channel only. In fact, we think that the beauty of the mobile devices today of the last generation smartphones is you can basically use your normal browser with the same websites, with the same ads, and you can drive that all the way to transaction on a mobile device without the need to say that you're going to do everything specific for mobile. As long as you have a mobile-enabled e-commerce website where you can do the transaction, you can kind of go the same path from browse, see a banner, click on it, land on the merchant website and buy. And that's where our growth has come from. In fact, it has not been by doing something very differently on a mobile device than on a stationary internet device, but by just enabling the same mechanisms, the same publishers and advertisers and our tracking mechanisms to work on mobile devices.
So that's a fantastic success if you manage to grow fivefold without tailoring your approach specifically to mobile. What we've learned at Madvertise is that you do need to have a mobile-specific strategy in terms of the design of your creatives, the landing page, the tracking, the use of cookies or fingerprinting technology, optimization. All those things do work significantly different on the mobile channel. So I would assume that if you would specialize and focus and tailor more to the mobile channel, you would probably have seen a sevenfold or tenfold increase. Obviously, we understand that mobile for you in the big picture is still relatively small, so it's probably the right thing to do, not spend too many resources on mobile. But in our experience, we're seeing you need to have a mobile-specific strategy to all the points I just mentioned. Otherwise, you're not capturing the full potential, and you're not capturing the full growth potential there.
So Pascal first, and then Dan.
Yeah, so I think there are many answers and different angles where you can answer that question. I think that for me, one of the most interesting trends is what Amazon and Apple are doing right now with the iPad and the Kindle, where basically you could see a future of distribution where it's actually doesn't need Google anymore, it doesn't need any kind of advertising, because it's the device that is driving your usage. And so I just purchased a Kindle Fire. I cannot wait to have the device, but it means that probably to buy a book, a video, or anything, I'll buy on Amazon directly through my device. I'll never type anything anymore in Google. I will never click on an ad, because I will rely on Amazon to give me all the content that I want, at least on music, video, books, and why not every other product. So I think this is an interesting trend that we should follow closely, because the iPad is transforming the way people browse and what they do with it, and they enter through the iPad, and the way they use it is different from the way they use a computer. So something to keep in mind, where we might not have a job in 10 years, all of us.
Well, hopefully you don't have a job in 10 years for other reasons. But
Yeah.
Dan.
So to go back to the original question, is it mobile, is it video, is it social? And I actually think we can talk about mobile and video and social, and I'll paint that picture. But I do agree that I think in the mobile space specifically, you do need to think about the platform and what is the consumer interaction, and how do consumers engage with each medium, because that's important, right? So, what we have found, and we did originally take the approach that a pre-roll is a pre-roll. It doesn't matter what screen it's on, and in fact, it actually matters a whole lot what screen it's on, because the point of activation matters. And so technology limitations on, for example, an iPhone or a Droid mean that you can't have interactive campaigns function the same way they do on a PC. And you can't click to launch content. You can't measure the sort of engagement rates that we measure on PCs. But what about a world when you're sitting in your living room and you're watching an ad on TV, and on your iPad pops up a linked, because the TV is a connected TV, on the iPad pops up the linked activation trigger, where it says, fill out a coupon for that brand. And you fill out a coupon for that brand, and so now your iPad's connected and essentially communicating with your TV. So now you have the activation point on your iPad, but the brand message is being delivered on that television. And by the way, you're using your iPad to communicate socially with your friends about the rugby game that you're watching, which is then linked up somehow to your Facebook page. So you get where this goes, that you can imagine a world where we talk about convergence a lot. And the true answer is we don't know really how it's all going to work. We don't know how apps on connected TVs are going to work. Samsung and LG and Sony are racing to try and figure that out. And as suppliers of advertising solutions, we will follow in stride. But the model of how consumers are going to respond to brand messages in a connected platform world is still early days, and it's probably a couple of years away before the right solution, the solution that becomes ubiquitous, is really fully understood.
And what about social? I mean, no one's mentioned Facebook, and the rumors are a couple of $1 billion of revenue this year, growing at 100% a year. Is that an important customer acquisition medium that changes the game somehow? Anyone?
Not that I've heard of. It's good for branding. I heard it's good for branding. I have to be there anyway, but it doesn't perform.
So measured in terms of clicks, in terms of sales, it's still a little kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of people. So when you can do carpet bombing and buy everything at 1 cent, apparently it works because the volume and But as soon as you pay your cost per click at the same rate as you pay it on Google, 20 cent, 15 cent, 20 cent, 30 cent, then it stops working. And you would understand why, in the sense that if I'm looking for a Canon EOS 7D and you put an ad for that, then you understand why it will perform. But then if I'm a male, 35, and this is what I do, I mean, you can target audiences, but to understand exactly what they want and exactly what is their intent is much more difficult. So,
I don't know. I mean, I recently added one of my sort of activities as yoga on Facebook, and now I get a yoga ad targeted to me that's actually from a local yoga provider near where I live in London. That's a pretty targeted ad, and I haven't clicked on it yet. But
exactly.
It's there in front of me every time.
You didn't click, you didn't buy. End of the story.
I think that just to put them all in context, mobile, video, Facebook. I mean, I think Facebook it's great if you know how to go beyond the ad, if you know how to engage, if the brand knows how to engage in a conversation after it's created the ad and what that ad leads to, and the viral effect and how it connects to all different other media that the user consumes. So if you know how to do that, I think Facebook delivers a result. I mean, if you simply use it as a pure performance tool, there is still debates whether, for some brands it doesn't work at all, and for other it does, but it's certainly not as established as Google is for CPC. And I think when you look at mobile, I think it's certainly something that it's a great platform for direct response in retail, and in the near future for geolocation application that allow that to develop even further. And video obviously brings to the digital world the power of much more engaging content, much more engaging advertising. So I think you have to be able to mix and match the strengths of the different platforms to get the best. I don't think there is the ultimate winner, whether it's mobile, whether it's video, whether it's social. You need to be able to combine them and get the different strengths from it.
So that brings me neatly on to, I think, what will be the last question, and then we break for lunch. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical, but it may be a scenario that you've come across. If one of your existing customers comes to you and says, we've got budget to spend, we're maxed out on Google, we can't spend any more money on Google, we're maxed out with you, we can't spend money more efficiently with you, what other medium, channel, provider would you direct them to? Which is the most efficient? So let's start, Pascal, you can't pick yourself, you can't pick Google, where would you send them?
So TV.
TV?
Yeah, I go TV.
And sort of local TV, cable TV, or?
Whatever TV, depending on your budget and depending on what's your brand, but I think I've seen a lot of our customers having good experience on TV, running ads on TV. They apparently can measure it, and sometimes it works, and it's true that TV has a massive impact. So I would say if you maxed out all the sources of direct response that you have on the web, and you want to do branding and performance at the same time, and I'm sorry, but I say TV.
Philipp.
So I would say spend it on the consumer by discounting to the consumer in whatever way you can, on coupons, vouchers, and that can take various channels of doing it, but I'm a direct response kind of guy, so I would go where the consumer is.
I would recommend cross-channel activation, similar to your earlier comment. Run a branding campaign on television and simultaneously on iPads and smartphones a direct response campaign which exactly matches your branding campaign on television, and then you can capture the customer on the iPad or on the smartphone to do the test drive or the hotel booking or whatever it is. So cross-channel campaign, television and iPad.
Marco.
I would suggest don't spend it on media, but maybe spend some money on analyzing actually what your media is doing. So you can keep spending more media on every channel. But I think one of the key parts in our industry now is to really look what's working. And it's an expensive task. It's not easy, but that's definitely undervalued at this point.
And is there any vendor in particular that you'd recommend, or one or two folks that provide analytics software that you think are very good, or is it something that you've got to sort of home grow it yourself?
No. Obviously, Google is working on some tools. They're working on everything, but you have tools like Media Math. Their Data Zoo is working on that kind of.
Anyone else got any suggestions on vendors just for our audience?
For analytics?
Sorry?
You mean specifically around analytics?
Yeah.
Or other?
No worries if not.
I guess we have our own.
That's okay. Yeah, build your own is often a good one. So Dan.
It's a really tough question because, frankly, it's not an issue we've seen come up where a brand is maxed out on their spend with our medium. I think online video is growing so fast, and we don't yet know where critical mass and the diminishing point of returns. We think we know, but we actually do it in a different way. We look at broadcast, and we look at point of diminishing returns in broadcast, and we move money from broadcast to the online video space as a complement to a broadcast buy, because we know we can reach incremental, unique users online. And so I guess what you're asking is, if you max out broadcast and you max out digital, I don't know, you save that money and spend it next year.
That's
but
a cop-out answer.
I do agree with Pascal that pushing it into broadcast does make sense, because that seems to work, and has worked historically to push products.
Okay.
Well, my answer would be definitely not TV, because they make enough, I take the point about the analytics. I think a lot of it, just learn what's working, not working. Many interesting, well, not many, but definitely like several platforms that are getting better and then providing more and more insight on what your campaign is working. And maybe take that and some experimentation. So if you've never done social media, or if you've never done video, if you've never done mobile or geolocation, then try that and see how it works. Just take the opportunity that you have this extra budget to experiment, but mostly just learn from what you've done. So analytics would be a very key part.
I guess it depends which budget we're talking about. If it's customer acquisition budget, I mean, after we fulfill a search budget, we then kind of recommend remarketing, retargeting. It works nicely with search. The problem is you just can't spend a lot, because you need a hell of a lot of impressions just to spend that budget. But that is the second place. I would kind of say, if once the economics change a little bit around kind of the voucher and couponing, right now it is not kind of economically friendly for an SMB to do that. But I think you're going to see that change over time. On the customer retention side, I actually think because that's also part of the marketing budget, I do think that's where a Facebook and a Twitter make a lot of sense in terms of spending to manage your social presence.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, so I want to make sure everyone has time for lunch. Thank you very much to our illustrious panel, and look forward to see you in the afternoon.